So this is one of my favorite questions because, dude, if I'd been in charge of UAB, like we would have gotten everybody hurt and I wouldn't have a job anymore. So, okay, this isn't really, all right, I've told this story before. So, all right, here's buckle up.
Okay,
All right, so I was that 4-day split guy. You got to do upper, lower, upper, lower. You got to have a dynamic day and a max effort day. And if you don't do that, then you're wrong. Like, you know, that was my philosophy. And you got to run every day. And I mean, they got to be coming back for extra work on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You got to get extra work after the extra work on. We need, as a matter of fact, we need an 8-day week so we can have a whole extra day of extra work. That was kind of my philosophy. More is better. You're soft. Stop being a punk. Like work harder. And you know, you can't outlift me. Yeah, because I was 24 and I was barely out of college and I was strong as shit because I didn't have any regard for my personal safety. And you know, that was what drove my coaching philosophy. And so I had the opportunity to leave. So my philosophy then would have been very oh God, I can't say this even to you. It's like more of like a West Side, like move heavy shit all the time, kind of, you know.
Stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I've actually so far removed from what like a true West Side program looks like and what a true conjugate looks like and what a true triphasic looks like and what a true, like I've forgotten all that because like you learn the bits and pieces and you meld them together. So I honestly don't even remember what that would have looked like, but it was 4 days a week with your off day was Wednesday. And then you literally, it was a bloodbath Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they had mandatory conditioning on Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, go find the biggest hill we can and make people quit and puke and bring the trash can. It's like, coach, I'm dizzy. Shut up.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, that ain't it. And so I go to Alabama after that, and they're training on a 3-day split. And I'm like, this is stupid. How are you supposed to get guys stronger? Like, remember, I'm in Alabama, right? This is dumb. What do you guys do? Like, what do y'all do? Like, I didn't say any of this, but I'm like, this is crazy. They're only lifting 3 days a week. What I learned in that process was when you have elite level athletes, the recovery is almost more important than the training stimulus itself. Okay. And so less is more. It's not least effective dose. It's optimal effective dose. More is not always better. And, you know, diminishing marginal utility has become like the name of the game. And, you know, I'm a business undergrad. So like the definition, like I learned what diminishing marginal utility was. I raised my hand in that class, came up to the stage, and she gave me a Snickers bar and I ate it. She's like, tell me, how good is that Snickers? Like, it's freaking awesome. I'm starving. I always come to this class. I'm hungry. She's like, here, have another one. I'm like, great. She's like, here, have another one. Great. And she's like, here, have another one. I'm like, I mean, she's like, no, eat it. I'm like, yeah. She's like, no, you volunteered, eat the Snickers. I'm like, but she's like, eat the Snickers. I'm like, all right, I ate the Snickers. And I thought that was it. And she's like, okay, here's another one. I was like, dude, I've eaten like 5 Snickers and it's only been like 6 minutes. And like, my stomach kind of hurts. Where she's like, eat another one. And I'm like, no. She's like, no, you're going to eat another one. I'm like, I'm not eating another one. She's like, oh, so you don't like Snickers? You don't want Snickers. You told me that Snickers were great. Because she had a bunch of candy bars. She asked me to pick. I picked Snickers. She said, you pick Snickers? Eat the Snickers. I was like, I don't want it. And she was like, exactly. But the first 2 were the greatest thing you'd ever had. And more is better, right? I'm like, no, I don't want any more Snickers. And I don't think I've eaten one since, honestly. So that was like 10 years ago or more. How old am I? 35. Yeah, it was like 12 years ago. So it really like struck me when I got to Alabama and I'm watching them try and without calling it diminishing marginal utility. Chadwick, come back. We're in the middle of stuff. You can't leave.
He's got 2 infant children and a naked 3-year-old running ram shot through the house. I got nothing for you.
Okay. Basically, they were describing diminishing marginal utility as I know it, as an actual like definition that I learned. And so I put that in the back of my head, like, don't make kids hate stuff they love. Because you do it so often and so much and so hard. Now, there's also the part where like you have to explain to them the monotony of growth and like speed work is boring. Strength work can be boring, but it has to be the proper dose and prescribed dose. You might hate it because you don't like to work hard, but you're not going to hate it because we overdid it.
Right.
So I learned that while I was there. And then I also learned, I don't want to talk trash here, but like,
no.
Way too much volume on certain types of conditioning and running. And they masked it they masked it with just elite level athletes, and it got better. And Scott Cochran did a great job over the years of like trying to grow and change that program. But it's the age old battle of like sport coach versus strength coach. And so I learned from a young age in this business that you have to be willing to fight battles with your head coach. And that's why I love working with Coach Cristobal here is we battle, bro. Like we go at it in a very respectful, elite professional way. But I'm talking like we throw down. And a lot of things have changed and some things haven't. And every now and again, he invokes you got to trust me. I've been doing this for 27 years or whatever. And I'm like, bet, because I do trust him. And he's he's never been wrong on one of those. I mean, I might've been righter once or twice, but he wasn't wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he never invoked that and been like, you have to trust me. And then like everything fell apart. And so like when he ever, like if he believes something that strongly, I'm always going to have his back on that. But like I told him when I went on my interview out to Oregon, I told my wife, I said, hey, are you interested in moving out to Oregon? She's like, well, you haven't gone on your interview. I was like, she's like, just go and see how it goes. I was like, you don't understand. If I go on this interview, I'm getting this job. Like if I fly to 2,500 miles, I'm coming back with a job offer. So you need to decide if the answer is absolutely no, just tell me now and I won't waste their time. And she's like, no, I'm willing to. I said, if it's like maybe but if it's definitely no, let's not waste anybody's time. And so when I was on the interview with him, I told him straight up, I was like, hey, look, if you're looking for a yes man that's just going to come in, say yes, sir, and do whatever you say just because you say it, like I'm not the guy. Like at the end of the day, you're the boss and whatever you want, like that's what you're going to get. But if we're doing something I don't think is safe or healthy or is wrong, I'm going to fight tooth and nail right up until the last minute. And like when the whistle blows, like whatever we've settled on, that's what it's going to be. But like that's my responsibility to you is to push you to learn and grow as well, but also to put my foot down when things are unsafe or wrong. And so, we walked into a program that had a major medical issue the year before we got there. And so that, they tried to roll me underneath. I'm digressing, but it's a great story.
No, I remember this scenario. I remember
they tried to roll me underneath the sports science department there. And like, I was like, nah, like, that's not it. Like, you can't hamstring me by making me do what some guy, like the guy was Scottish that ran a sports science department. And he was terrible. And like, I was like, I'm the only person here that's an expert at training 120 American football players. I threw that American football players. American football players at one time. Like you had a problem before I got here. I'm the solution that you settled on to fix it. Right. Like, let me do what I need to do. And they did. Coach Cristobal had my back but we got it fixed. And so we fixed all those issues. But like, that's the thing. Like if something happening that is wrong, like coaches talk about all the time about job security. Like, well, I don't want to piss my head coach off. I don't want my job. I would rather lose my job than knowingly, willingly participate in something that I know is unsafe or unhealthy or wrong. But you know what? You stand on your morals and values and lose your job, you'll get another one.
Yes. You
lose your job because people get hurt because you didn't speak up, you're not going to get another one.
Right.
And so like I tell people all the time, I'd rather lose my job than compromise my morals and values. And like, I literally mean that. Now, thankfully I have a head coach that would never put me in that position. I didn't know that at the beginning of things, but I know that now, but like I'm in it when I said it. And so, but that goes back again to what I learned while I was at Alabama was, you don't have to beat these dudes into the ground. You don't have to make things unsafe or unhealthy. You have to push these guys to their limits, but not past them. Like you want to bump their limits up one notch every time. And not push them overboard because you want to spend your time in overreaching syndrome, but you never want to get into overtraining. Like you need to be fully recovered when you get to spring ball, not necessarily spring ball, like especially if you have spring break in the middle, like we do, but like at some point you got to get back to max capacity before you finish, so these guys, like recovery is so important. Neurological freshness is so important. And I learned that at Alabama. And then I went to UNA and I didn't do anything different. Like that changed my programming philosophy, which I took to UNA. But what I learned at UNA is probably the most valuable thing I learned. Well, I didn't learn it at UNA. I learned it after I left. But if I had been able to now I was the only strength coach at UNA. I had 430 something athletes, 13 sports by myself. I spent like 9 hours a day training athletes on the floor. And that's not even like writing workouts or cleaning or whatever, by myself. And I was messed up in the head. Like I couldn't do the whole, like, okay, here's your workout, go do it. I'm going to be in the office, like typing in other programs. Like I trained volleyball, like I trained football. Like, and I don't mean the same workouts. I just mean with the same intensity and the same focus. Like I didn't know how to not do that. And so that was a partial lesson I learned after the fact. But the next one is, if I could have hired a whole staff, there would have been 5 me's running around, and it would have been a disaster. Like, it would have been absolutely terrible, and people would have hated us, and we probably would have like burned the building down and gotten fired and whatever. But I learned when I went to Georgia with Mark Hockey, who hired me, who went from Alabama to Georgia, hired me. We had a really well-rounded staff. But our staff didn't really get along. It was like me and Hockey versus the other 3 guys, and they're all great strength coaches, but it was just like, we're coming into a program that had been there established for years. Our strength coach retired. They brought a guy in over the top of the guys that were already there. It was just a little bit of bad blood, mostly professional, but you could tell there was friction. And I thought Hockey handled it really, really well. It was a really challenging situation for a first-time head strength coach. So from the time of building UNA had never, I know I'm jumping around. I have ADHD. Give me a break. Okay. So UNA had never had a strength coach before. They never had a weight room really before. And so like, I get in there, I'm like, okay, so like, what's my budget there? What do you mean? I'm like, well, like, okay, you got to put toilet paper in the bathroom. Who pays for that? Right. You gotta clean the floors. Like, who buys the cleaning material? Does that come out of my budget? Is there a cleaning budget? Like, do I need to actually clean the bathroom myself? Or do we have a custodian? Like, what does that look like? What's our emergency action plan? Where's the AED? Like, where are all these things? Because I'm fresh off. I've got the book. I'm like, hey, administrative.
Oh, the NSCA book. Looking at all.
Yeah, we need to have this gap between the racks.
You need the AED. Where's the AED? And all these things, and part of, like I said, I'm a business undergrad, so I'm thinking from a business standpoint, liability. Like, do we have liability waivers for coaches that don't work for the university? Because D2 schools sometimes they contract out their golf coach and all this, like, he's in here, something falls on him, like, are we covered? Like, all those things. So I learned a lot that really helped me later on from that, and then carrying that with me to Coach Hockey. It was his first time being a head strength coach. So I helped him with some of those things, helped him with a little bit of programming. He taught me a lot about motivation and mindset and, a lot of those things. But the most important thing he taught me was having a well-rounded staff is the most important thing. And that experience of having a staff that wasn't exactly meshing together really well also taught me that that's also extremely important. So when I went out to Oregon, I took Matt Fowle, who's the head strength coach at UNLV right now. I took Matt Fowle with me. He was an intern who we bumped up to a full-time paid position on a temporary contract to fill a hole until we could get a full-time guy in there. I took him with me, and I hired Shawn Williams away from Wisconsin. 2 guys that I knew were great human beings. I didn't know if Shawn Williams could coach his way out of a paper bag. I didn't. Now, he's a phenomenal coach, and he's even better now than he was then because he was really new to the business. But like coaching acumen and like instincts on how to coach players, phenomenal. But I didn't know that. I just knew he was a great human being. And just conversations that we had and the people I'd met him with. And so I was like, I'm taking 2 great human beings out there with me. Coach Fowle is about as close to me as you can get without being me. And so I knew I could turn my back on the room if I needed to, and shit would happen exactly the way I wanted it to. So I get out there, and I mean, it's just me and Fowle back to back in a bar fight, right? And I'm not really utilizing Shaw to his best capabilities because I knew Fowle could do it. And instead of I poured everything on Fowle, and then Fowle ended up leaving the next year to go work with RD at Maryland.
Okay.
And so I had no right hand at that point because I had never given Shaw the opportunity to even show what he was capable of. So I called him off. It's like, bro, it's go time. Like, you got to step up. And he absolutely did. And he crushed it for me for the next 3 years as my assistant director. And, but I learned the lesson that you have to trust your people and you have to give them opportunities to learn and grow and make mistakes. I learned that the hard way because it was a learning curve to get him caught up, and it shouldn't have been. Right. And notice we haven't talked about sets and reps this whole time.
Not yet.
You're talking about philosophy, and my philosophy is about surrounding your players with the most elite level human beings possible. Right. So we ended up hiring a great staff. So the last 4 years, I've put out 3 head strength coaches, and everybody who's listening to this, don't roll your eyes. I'm not promoting myself. I hired people who are ready to be head strength coaches. I haven't just taken dudes off the street and taught them to be mini me and like trying to get dudes hired at places to say how many guys are out there. But that's what I learned was bring in people who are ready for the next step. Right. So at one point I had Matt Fowle, on my staff, who's now a head strength coach. And then I replaced him. Well, I didn't replace him. Actually, I had created a new position. I replaced him with Shaw, but I hired Jeff Eaton away from Purdue. And then I ended up getting Reed Kagi from Iowa State. Now, Reed Kagi's a head strength coach. Matt Files a head strength coach. And then RD, we kind of had an argument. We had it out about this, but RD hired File away from me, which we dealt with that emotionally. But then I hired Mason Baggett away from him. And we haven't RD, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. We haven't had a chance to joke about this. I'm like, dude, that's totally your fault. I never would have even met the guy if you hadn't hired File. So like, but Mason Baggett is a freaking phenomenal human being, and he's an excellent strength coach. He's now the head strength coach at Nevada. Coach Eaton's has interviewed for multiple head strength coach jobs. It's only a matter of time before he's gone. But the point is, like, I'm bringing in dudes who are ready for the next step. And my encouragement to all the strength coaches who are listening to this, don't be intimidated to hire coaches who are better than you. Every coach that I've ever hired is a better strength coach than me, period. Every single one of them. And here's the cool part. I give them all the credit in the media, and I get credit for that too. Everything that they do, I get credit for because I hired them. Right? Yeah, the program is mine. I put it in on paper, and then we come in the office and they poke holes in it. Coach Eaton would tell you he's an everything guy, but he's big on the west side of the spectrum. I've got Coach Vic Ishmael here. He's a sprint certified coach. He's a big guy, but everything we talk about speed and power. And so like I put the program on paper, and then we argue about it for 5 hours a day for a couple of days in a row until we land on what we're going to do. Because I tell my staff, if you go out on the floor and you're pissed off about the way we're training, that is your fault. You're going to have every opportunity to fight for what you believe in and change what we're doing. But you better be more knowledgeable and more passionate about what you want to do than I am about what I want to do. Because you're going to have to change my mind. Change my mind. We'll do anything you want to do. You got to change my mind. And so that's my philosophy. That's what changed from UNA in Georgia. I don't have a philosophy anymore. It's what's the best thing that this team needs right now.